Hello, I'm Bill Ramey of TBM Consulting Group, and thanks for joining us today. We're going to continue our video series talking about the 5 key strategies for manufacturers to help drive productivity and agility in the business. In prior videos, we've talked about human capital, productivity, and technology, and today we're going to talk about supply chain and specifically supply chain risk. Joining us today is our Managing Director of Supply Chain, Chip Barth. Welcome, Chip.
Good morning, Bill.
Hey, Chip, so as we talk about, we think supply chain risk. What are the types of risks or things that you are hearing from clients and companies out there that we work with?
Sure. As you can imagine, across all the different companies, you hear all kinds of different reasons or buckets of what they're looking for from a risk perspective. But kind of sitting at the top of the list are two that we hear commonly, which are financial and then delivery, which would include service and lead time. Inside of the financial piece, it's not just about cost always. Sometimes it's about financial stability, whether it's of their own organization or of the suppliers themselves. And then beyond that, probably more of the traditional ones around transportation, quality, and any geopolitical issues.
That's great. When you think about some of the quality issues, in some cases, in some industries, those are making a lot of headlines, specifically with the airlines and some of the OEMs. How much is the quality impacting them versus what they may be seeing as price pushback from the suppliers versus just general delivery performance?
Yeah, these can be actually quite large, as you could imagine. If they get into the building themselves and get into the finished good products or even the WIP and then out to their customers, now you're talking recalls, quality issues, damage of reputation. So there's long lasting impacts or potential impacts to the quality issues that companies are seeing.
So, in order to mitigate some of those risks, what are some of the things that companies can do, or what actions can they take, and how do they build and then we'll talk about building a comprehensive plan, but what are some of the larger actions that they can take to mitigate that risk in the supply chain?
Sure. Specific to quality, you're looking more at maybe your QMS and your total quality systems, understanding your critical components, your FEMAs and control plans to make sure that you have good, tight controls over the inbound raw materials that are coming in and going into the products to make sure you've got your control points set up both from a process, equipment, and the component side of things to eliminate some of those risks. And then taking those and going back, we've had a recent experience with a company that does a lot of procurement and then an assembly in their own building. But on the procurement side, they had to really work together with supplier quality and bridge the gap between the two functions of just the pure sourcing function versus the monitoring and development of the supply base itself to make sure that they had wins across the board for their organization to deliver a good product.
So if I'm a supply chain professional and or in procurement, and I'm thinking about these things, and how do I think about getting started? Right, I'm pretty busy with just the day-to-day running of the business. How do I find time, and how do I get started to think about putting some kind of a risk mitigation plan together?
Sure, that's a really good question. A lot of places struggle on this one of how to get started or where to get started. But at its purest point is to start up with critical components versus non-critical components. And then you also have something that maybe people don't always look at, which is evaluating your supplier capacities. So looking for bottlenecks and understanding kind of where your constraints are to help you make sure that you're getting in where you may have troubled suppliers because of capacity issues or the criticality of the components, whether it's due to quality or performance, or you just can't sell the product if you don't have these things, or it interrupts your manufacturing process. Whatever your company defines as critical, having that conversation cross-functionally and then prioritizing those suppliers based on capacity constraints and the criticality is a great place to start.
Sounds good, Chip. Appreciate the thoughts on that. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope this has been helpful to at least get you thinking about where your risk is coming from, and how you might mitigate that. We've got one more video to go in this series around ESG and how that can help you find productivity. And we look forward to seeing you in that